Welcome to this video where we explain how Liquidware enhances Microsoft Intune, combining the flexibility of modern management with the grip that we were used to. But before we can dive into the modern approach, we need to understand where we're coming from. Because the workspace has evolved over the years, where it started out as physical machines on premises in an office, and we really ran into the limitations of how far the domain could stretch. And most of our workspaces got consolidated into VDI or RDS sessions, all within the boundaries of that physical office. But then, when we started to move outside of that office with mobile devices, a new approach became necessary, and that became modern management. Modern management basically means that no matter where my device is, it will always be in contact with its management point. Not dependent on the network, not dependent on a VPN, but as soon as it hits the internet connection, I'm getting the policies that my device needs, the applications that my device needs, and also, since everything is cloud native, the rollout of my new devices is easy as well. Microsoft does this with Intune, unified endpoint management for a broader suite of devices than just Windows. It delivers device management, so configuring the device, delivering applications, and making sure that the device remains compliant. So it's also a major part in the security factor. It can take into account conditional access for allowing specific access, and devices are automatically enrolled into an organization and configured with the right applications through Microsoft Autopilot. And it does all of this over the internet. So no matter where my device is, it will always have the latest configuration. But Intune does more than device management on physical devices. It is also used for Windows 365, which is a cloud PC. This cloud PC is a dedicated machine that runs in Azure, and it has a one-on-one relationship with its owner. So the end user is the only person working on this machine. There's no image management, there's no infrastructure required to support it, and it is managed through Intune. But as good as Intune is, there are certain pains that are definitely felt within the platform. The most obvious one is app delivery, in that it is incredibly slow. Management extension pulls in every hour, and devices need to check in, leading to 1 to 5 hour averages for applications to actually end up on the endpoint. But delivery isn't the only problem. Intune requires applications to be repackaged into Intune Win files, basically wrapping the whole installation. So your silent installation with detection scripts and pre and post install actions might take a lot of work. And if there's a fault in your detection logic, Intune will probably retry to install that application multiple times. And when there's a serious problem, rolling back that application is a pain as well, because you have to repackage the old version and make sure that it is delivered out again. As a second one, who would ever think that we would miss group policy objects? Group policy preference are completely gone. There's no real replacement, because Microsoft made the change to the CSPs and the settings catalog, which cover a lot of ground, but are not as extensive as our GPOs used to be. There are no native options for drive mappings for printer connections. Want to add a quick registry mod, a file copy, a scheduled task? Intune has no native equivalent. So it used to take seconds, now it takes way longer to configure. And how do you solve for this? With scripting, baby! The good Intune administrators are the ones that bring experience with the scripting. Everything from changing custom registry settings to legacy app compatibility, tweaking Windows features that are not exposed in Intune, file system modifications, copying, deleting files, custom app deployment, remediation scripts, running a service, for example. Everything needs to be done with scripting. And that is cool if you're good at scripting, but it will always run the risk of becoming way too custom for your organization to support. And the last pain is that monitoring is opaque at best. Administrators often rely on multiple disconnected views to get an insight into all of their devices. Different views for the device status, different views for application deployment reports, for endpoint analytics, and client-side logs to piece together what is actually happening on this device. And that's because Intune operates asynchronously. There's no guaranteed live state. And this makes it difficult to make sure that a setting or configuration is actually applied or still pending. So if we look at Windows 365 and Intune, what are they both missing? Well, first off, user environment management. Everything that is personal to the user, so from their wallpaper to the settings delivered to make sure that their session is running correctly, to resources such as files, folders, network shares, printers, and of course, applications. And those applications should be delivered centrally in a centralized app delivery mechanism. And of course, there's the advanced configuration, so everything that is not manageable within Intune itself. And if we want to get to grips with our organization, it's going to be important that we get direct insights and are able to remediate devices when issues arrive. And if it can be simpler and faster, that would be great too. And that's where Liquidware can help, because we deliver digital workspace management solutions that work across all Windows platforms, whether that is physical, in the cloud, or in virtual capacities. And it consists of 4 major solutions. The first is ProfileUnity, where we do everything user environment related. So that's making sure that profiles are portable, that the sessions are configured, and that the experience for the user is as good as it is across all these platforms. We make applications portable with FlexApp, where we make sure that applications are installed within virtual hard disks and can then be delivered across all of these platforms. Package an application once, deploy them everywhere. And on the right side of your screen, we've got a monitoring DEX solutions. Stratusphere collects tons of data on CPU, memory, disk usage, networks, but also applications, users that are logged on, the logon sequence, you name it, we've got every metric available to you. And we make that easily readable in nice dashboards, which can be drilled down into. But should you have real-time insights into what your estate is like, then we've got CommandCTRL. CommandCTRL polls every 3 seconds, so as soon as I click on a device, I can see in real time what's happening on that device, see all the metrics that are there, but also take remediating steps, running scripts, allowing a remote access, remote control, remote PowerShell actions, and really help our end user. Because we believe that the workspace should be modular, flexible, and versatile. We need to be able to deliver services across every platform, so whether that is physical, virtual, or cloud. We also deliver our services on all Windows OSs, whether that is server or desktops. And we layer security and context on top of that, to only apply settings and applications when and where they are needed. And this gives us the context needed to continually evaluate and adjust. Next, we layer applications, individual and separate from the OS, making them easily updatable, and it gives us the freedom to roll back and deploy them everywhere. And then of course everything for the user environment. The user profile, of course, with everything that is personal to them, but also their personal application settings, and of course policy management, whatever needs to be configured within that Windows session. And lastly, we monitor the entire environment with DEX. So let's dive into what that looks like. Because user environment management, it kind of sounds like something we used to do, right? But user environment covers everything from the profile to settings to the experience. And doesn't that still apply to modern platforms? Absolutely. And we want that experience to be smooth, because if they have a smooth experience at home, they expect to have the same when they start working. But also we need to help our IT admins, making their life easier. And that's where ProfileUnity comes in. Because ProfileUnity is primarily used as a profile management solution, but is also an extensive management solution for everything on top of Windows. And it can work side by side with Microsoft Intune, adding on top of the solution, filling the gaps where needed. Think about application black and white listing, which can be quite complex with App Locker and App Control for Business. But in ProfileUnity, it's as easy as selecting the action we want to deny or allow and point to the executable that we want this to apply on. And the same goes for privilege elevation. For these applications that require administrator rights because they're old or poorly made, well, that doesn't require any extra licensing. ProfileUnity can take care of that very easily. But the real win comes in features that used to be quick in GPOs, but are now hard to do within Intune. Think about drive mappings, printers, shortcuts, file type associations. It's all done very smoothly and very quickly through our platform. But more importantly, every action we take is delivered directly onto the endpoint. There's no sync times, there's no waiting. As soon as you log on or refresh your environment, the new settings will be reflected. And it's very easy to get off the ground as well on an infrastructure level. The interface you just saw is running on a Windows server that can run in an Azure environment, and we just need a place to deploy our settings to and store our applications at. And that can be an Azure Blob Storage, for example, which is quick and cost effective. And with that one interface, I can create multiple configurations supporting all of the available workspaces within our environment. So that can be the physical machines managed with Intune, but also AVD, Windows 365. you name it. For the profile and personal documents, we can assist while also using the native tools. Think about OneDrive, for example, for storing your files, or FSLogix for making sure that the caches are on the devices. And our portability engine can add on top of that, because it adds files and registry keys and saves them to zip files onto your shared location. And that means that even settings outside of your profile container can be brought along, and they can also be individually restored or deleted. If an issue occurs with one of your settings, just delete the setting and the defaults will be restored without having to completely remove your entire profile. Let's have a look when things should be simple. Have you ever tried deploying start menu items to a couple of SaaS or web apps with Intune? Well, that leads to a lot of edge icons within your folder as shown on this image. Wouldn't you rather have nice corresponding icons so your users don't see the difference between a locally installed application and a web app? Because to them it shouldn't matter. Or how about drive mappings? Because there is no native drive mapping solution within Microsoft Intune. In the old world, it was a simple GPO preference, a single line. But in Intune, you have to write a PowerShell script and deploy it as an app. So now you also need detection logic, and users will still sometimes hit the desktop before the application appears. ProfileUnity does this natively at logon or with a refresh, and it can also deliver it context-aware. Printer mapping is the same story. It used to be a simple GPO, one line, now it's a script, remediation, and a scheduled task. ProfileUnity handles this natively, including location-based printing logic. Or what about file type associations, so that the PDF opens in Adobe and not in Edge? Intune can push an XML with the default app associations, but it only applies on first login of a new profile. It's not reliably across updates and is known to be a fragile mechanism. ProfileUnity applies this correctly at every logon or refresh. Environment variables and registry settings, something that used to be so simple, a few clicks, but Intune requires custom ADMX templates or PowerShell remediations, and timing and reliability at login is inconsistent. ProfileUnity handles environment variables, registry rights, and file copies natively. Privilege elevation for a single app is simple too. In Intune, it requires endpoint privilege management, but it's a separate add-on with extra costs, and it can't elevate apps from a network share. ProfileUnity includes granular privilege elevation straight out of the box. And all of this brings me to the same pattern. What used to take 60 seconds now takes half a day. And most of this is because Microsoft Intune solves everything at the device level, but the answer is always write a script, package it, build a remediation, and then manage assignment groups. What took seconds in group policy now takes an afternoon. And I don't have to explain to you that time is valuable, but it's also a risk factor and an administrator's frustration above all. So everything we do in ProfileUnity is based on filtering, context, and triggers. We want settings to be applied on a granular level. That could be on AD groups or intra-ID groups based on user or device, on type of operating system or type of device that they're coming from. Maybe they're coming from a thin client or a terminal server. And we want to be aware of IP addresses, of hardware types, the types of session that you're bringing it on, or the connection types that you're using. Maybe we're connecting through a specific protocol or over a specific line. And we want to apply this when we actually need it. At logon or at refresh, based on an interval, maybe every 30 seconds we want to evaluate a specific step, or based on an action. An app starts, a device shuts down, or an IP address change occurs. So let's look at app management. Traditional application installs touch a lot of points on your hard disk. It can be in program files, app data, profiles, registry, it can register services, and when you remove an application, bits of it always stay behind. So FlexApp layers applications on top of it. It doesn't install that, leading to cleaner images, fewer rolled over time, and these applications can be as complex as you'd like. They can include DCOM, DLL, services. Everything is stored inside that application package, which is a virtual hard disk, which we attach to the session. And through our filter driver, it appears as if the application is installed natively on the system. But since we only look at all of the native components, we have a near perfect success rate with our applications. Applications are stored in virtual hard disks, which are expandable and can be mounted over the network or from the cloud and can be distributed with our context-aware agent in ProfileUnity. Applications can also be delivered through FlexApp 1 as a single executable containing all of the parts. Applications can be attached at boot, so when the machine starts up, applications are attached directly. At login, so it takes a couple of seconds for the applications to attach, but they're immediately present as soon as the desktop is there. Or we can use click the layer, which means that the application is visible on the desktop or in the start menu, but as soon as you click it, the application will get connected. And we can also have applications be available offline, as you can see, through our various caching options. Packaging an application is really simple. We just need a machine to package the application on, and applications can be installed from any source, whether that is MSI, executables, zip files, scripts, manual file copies. We just register all of the changes and record that into this hard disk so it can be used later on. But we can also convert existing file types. Maybe you have some MSIX applications or AppV applications. We can convert them into our FlexApp format as well. And these applications can be easily modified as well, removing parts or including extra files that are needed, or maybe just deleting a whole service that we forgot to exclude from the package in the first place. And we can also add scripts in the activation and deactivation phase. Maybe we need some files to be present, or the environment to be configured a specific way, or maybe a cleanup script once the application is removed. Everything can be contained in this package. And once I've packaged that application, I can deploy that application everywhere, because they're delivered through file shares on the internal network or through cloud storage to modern devices. So that means that I can use the same applications on Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop, and I can use that application on Intune as well. And Intune is a great tool for managing devices, but for application delivery it kind of falls short. As I said, first we need to package the application into Intune.win, upload it, and it can have it available in the company store or have Intune deliver it. However, when our application is actually on the endpoint, that can vary. And in some cases it can take up to 48 hours even for the application to be arriving. What would be a better solution is to have a blob storage serve this need. So we will upload our applications to the blob storage and have our agent deliver it out to the endpoints, meaning that the application will be available at the next login or at the direct refresh. And think about this. When applications fail, that has a big impact. Apps that are updated automatically can cause issues for many organizations. But if we were using FlexApp, it would be as easy as this. So in this case, our Teams is causing some trouble. So let's remove the newer version of Teams and send in the old version of Teams. And at the next logon or refresh, our employees are working again. And that brings us to DEX monitoring and remediation. Because getting direct insights into your Intune estate is incredibly difficult. But with StratusphereUX, we can get these extensive insights because we collect a lot of metrics from CPU to memory to disks to networks, and we can create dashboards out of all of this information, making it easily readable on what the state of your organization is. Want to find out what is keeping logon times back? Want to right-size your environment when you're preparing to move to Windows 365 or to Azure Virtual Desktop? What is causing a slowdown in a specific system? Or want to look at applications that are licensed but not commonly used? This is really easy and really easily visible within StratusphereUX. And every dashboard is interactive. So if I click on the dashboard for the workspace impact, I see what factors are holding my organization back. And I can see what devices are being targeted the most. And then use our drill down feature to really investigate what is going on with this machine. And CommandCTRL extends this into actions, because where I can see on an hourly basis within Stratusphere, I can see it in real time in CommandCTRL. But not only that, it is also our tool for remediating issues. So it's an extension of our help desk. So they can remote control the session to find out what's going on, or they can launch a PowerShell connection to the machine to remotely work while the end user is not disturbed. They can stop services, stop processes, and even fire off remediation scripts. But the best part is that we have the ability to go back in time. Because how many times have I personally walked down to an employee to find out only that the issue is not recurring at the moment, but it occurred yesterday at 4? Well, with CommandCTRL, you can go back to what the machine looked like and play back the exact data of what was happening second by second on that machine yesterday at 4. So let's tie that back to the Intune pains that we've seen before and how Liquidware can help alleviate these pains. App delivery, we can deliver applications fast and flexible with FlexApp. Package an application once, delivering them everywhere. For our control problem and missing group policy objects, ProfileUnity makes actions quick and configurations easy. And our dependency of scripts, scripting is still possible, but is not required within ProfileUnity. And for the opaque monitoring, we can get deep insights and remediation through StratusphereUX and CommandCTRL. Would you like to know more? Scan the QR code.